Hello and welcome to Africa Today. I am Esther Mokwariola. It has been so much for a brand of politics exclusive to Kenya after a historic step towards democracy in Africa was recently thrown into turmoil ahead of a rerun presidential poll. From the wake of a controversial vote to the aftermath of an unprecedented annulment, Kenya now finds itself on uncharted waters, surrounded by constitutional uncertainty, in what some have called a waste of political momentum and financial resources. And so we ask, what are your thoughts on the latest political developments in Kenya following Raila Odinga's withdrawal from the upcoming rerun presidential election? You can join the conversation and share your thoughts with us on Twitter at TVC News NG. We take a report and Africa Today will continue. Welcome on board.
Kenya's opposition leader, Raila Odinga, has withdrawn from the October the 26th presidential election rerun. In a press conference on Tuesday in Nairobi, the leader of the National Super Alliance said he will not participate in the election under the existing circumstances, arguing that the contest cannot be free and fair.
The annulment has plunged the country into uncharted waters. That was to be expected. What we could not have expected is that the country's leadership would be divided by a fundamental tenet of democracy, namely free and fair elections.
Odinga added that as a fighter of democracy in Kenya, he would not allow autocracy to creep back into the country's politics, insisting the rerun election be held to the standard of the Supreme Court.
But we in NASA are calling for uchaguzi bora, a credible election. In a constitutional democracy, we should not be debating about a free and fair election or compliance with court orders or accountability for breach of public trust.
The opposition leader said it was unfortunate that international actors who supported Kenyans in their quest for democracy and good governance are now on the side of appeasing dictatorship in the mistaken belief that it will maintain stability.
We shall not allow anything to dampen our morale. We won the battle for multi-party democracy. We won the battle for a new constitution. We are going to win the battle for a free and fair election. After deliberating on our position in respect of the upcoming election, considering the interests of the people of Kenya, the region and the world at large, we believe that all will be best served by NASA vacating its presidential candidature in the election scheduled for 26th October this 2017.
Odinga underlined the fact that NASA based its decision on existing constitutional and legal foundation. With this surprise move, many believe the political uncertainty in the East African nation has further snowballed.
Welcome back. It has been tense recent weeks of protest that has seen running battles between the police and demonstrators in parts of Kenya. After Kenyatta was declared the winner in the initial vote, sporadic violence erupted in some areas, claiming the lives of at least 24 people. Joining me in the studio on Africa Today, I have Chukwuemeka Eze, a lawyer and a political analyst in Nigeria. And on phone, I have Elias Patuma, High Court advocate and a lawyer representing the opposition presidential candidate, Dr. Ekuru Alcott. Good to have you gentlemen on the program. So let me begin with you now, Chukwuemeka. When Odinga, withdrew as of yesterday, no one expected this to have happened. But now that he has done so, what are your thoughts on this first? And what do you think will be the likely implications?
The likely implications is that Uhuru Kenyatta will proceed with the amendment to the electoral law today at the Kenyan Parliament. Basically, it is quite certain that the Jubilee coalition that is the party of the sitting
Kenyatta
president, certainly, will drag this process to its logical conclusion. By whichever way. I mean,
so
the
you are
process
trying to say that it wants to keep itself in power?
Certainly, certainly. I see the president remaining in power. The way he reacted to the judgment of the Supreme Court, calling the Supreme Court justices talks, notwithstanding that not all of them voted in favor of that decision. He still called them talks, and he threatened to amend the laws to encapsulate a situation whereby the Supreme Court justices will not be able to annul any election. So he went too far, and from that point I knew he was on a roller coaster.
So by this extension now, there isn't any hope for Raila Odinga
Certainly.
In terms of perhaps coming back?
There is no hope for Raila Odinga.
All right. If Odinga doesn't seem to have a chance in all of this, right now he wants a reform of the Electoral Commission so that he can, have a free and fair election come October 26th. Is that too hard for him to get?
Yes, between now and October 26th, their reform cannot be done.
Why?
Basically, it requires executive action, it requires parliamentary action. All this cannot be done between now and then. And even that reform, the reform that will be acceptable to Raila Odinga, the Uhuru Kenyatta and his coalition members are not ready to effect that reform. So basically, that reform will not take place.
But according to an article, that is the Kenya's Electoral Act, that's Article 138, Section 8, subsection B, says if a presidential candidate or his deputy dies, or if one candidate withdraws from the race, then the electoral body shall cancel the election and conduct fresh nominations at least 90 days before elections.
But this is not talking about repeat election, where you have just cited.
So this is a different case altogether?
This is a different case, and you recall that the Supreme Court has taken a position on this matter, giving them 60 days to conduct the election. So this is inapplicable in this circumstance.
So there isn't any situation for any hope, so to speak?
No, he has withdrawn, and it's voluntary, so nobody will force it on him. But the law that has been amended is quite cruel. That's not the best way to go. It's like in a match, middle where you begin to change the rules. That's what Kenyatta is doing. But with what Kenyatta passed through at the ICC, International Criminal Court, Kenyatta cares no hoot in ensuring that he continues in power.
So by that, what are you trying to say by extension?
No, by extension, Kenyatta will be all the way. He has succeeded in intimidating all the paraphernalia of state apparatus. He has succeeded in abusing the Supreme Court justices, bringing amendments all the way, almost on all issues that will make him remain in power. Electoral law, he has amended it. And that, in any case, the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court can do within the confines of the electoral law, he has also amended it. I mean, his party is having a majority in the parliament. So and his party sponsored these amendments. So basically, it is not in doubt that Uhuru Kenyatta does not want. You recall he said that, good riddance to bad rubbish. That if this man has opted out, I mean, the
election will go ahead.
I mean, perfectly and absolutely.
So that means we're having a repeat of history in Kenya, because we know his father, that's Kenyatta, and the father of Raila Odinga, Jomo Kenyatta, won the election in place instead of Raila Odinga. So we're having a repeat of history again.
Not exactly the same way, but a struggle for power. Recall he was former, Raila Odinga's father was former vice president to Jomo Kenyatta. And he expected to take over at a stage. It became clear to him that he had completely been marginalized. Not just him, those he represented. So that brought about him writing that book, Not Yet Uhuru. That is not yet freedom for the people of Kenya. And with all manner of happenings, it got to a point that a writer, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, wrote, "Weep not, child, weep not my people." So basically, Kenya has been on a theater of absurdity. trying to crawl out from the pattern of African political misadventure to modern political renaissance. Basically, there are forces pulling it back. And with what Kenyatta is now doing, basically we can now see that the only lesson man learns from history is that man shall never learn from history. Man
shall never learn from history. What a way to put it there. But let's quickly go on a quick break. We've been looking at the latest political developments in Kenya following Raila Odinga's withdrawal from the upcoming rerun presidential election. Welcome back. While the opposition leader Raila Odinga believes the rerun election should be cancelled going by present circumstances, lawyers for President Kenyatta think their candidate should be declared winner altogether. And understanding the next step could require a combination of the 2010 Constitution and the 2013 Supreme Court decision on the disputed election, the Elections Act, Kenya's election regulation, and the major decision of the 2017 election petition. Well, now we have back on the line Dr. Ekuru Aukot to give his perspective on this, and he is a lawyer representing the opposition presidential candidate. All right, I've been told that he is yet to be back on the line. Well, let me quickly come back to you now, Chukwuemeka Eze. Let's look at the High Court that ordered the electoral agency to include a third way alliance presidential candidate, talking about Ekuru Aukot, to be included in the October rerun election. Now, what is the implication of this, knowing that initially it was meant to be for Raila Odinga?
Basically, if he contests, it will just be a waste of time. Nobody will take him serious. He scored 27,000 votes out of 50 million votes. So that's infinitesimal. It's a figure that can be completely ignored. Ekuru Aukot is not a factor in the rerun election, except just to be used as somebody to fill in the gap. So I think it's not a factor. He does not represent a reasonable segment of the Kenyan population. Raila Odinga is a factor. Recall the last time he was prime minister under, I think, Mwai Kibaki. Yes, so basically it's a factor. He represents, I think, the second major tribe in Kenya. So you cannot ignore Raila. By Raila Odinga stepping out, a very good sizable population of Kenya has stepped down. So it might lead to crisis. Further crisis might lead to chaos, because the people supporting Raila Odinga have been crying for justice. And the way they see justice, to be allowed to taste power, presidential power. So if they are not allowed, many of them, nobody knows what will happen. But there could be a worst case scenario.
A worst case scenario, and what do you think that could be?
We could have a rebel group trying to use the force of arms, and there could be killings. There could be intertribal killings in Kenya.
I hope to not get to that point.
Certainly nobody wishes that. Yeah. That's why I use the worst case scenario.
All right, let me quickly return to Elias Mutuma, who is on the line, and he is the High Court advocate and a lawyer representing opposition presidential candidate Dr. Ekuru Aukot. Good to have you back on the line. So I asked you earlier on your thoughts on Raila Odinga's withdrawal from the rerun.
Thank you very much. Remember that yesterday Raila Odinga made a withdrawal from the race, throwing the country into a constitutional crisis, because it was supposed to be a runoff, according to the way IBC had interpreted the Supreme Court decision. So without him, we will not have an election. But today, the High Court made another judgment, including Dr. Ekuru Aukot, who was a candidate in the previous election, therefore diluting the looming constitutional crisis, because we now have a competition, because you could not have elections without competitors, especially if it is in the concept of a runoff. So we at least now we know that we are going back to elections. And Kenyans at least now can, breathe a sigh of relief knowing that we are going back to elections.
Of Akuru Court in this rerun, saying that he only garnered about 1% in the August 8th election.
Pardon?
I asked what are the chances of Akuru Court in this rerun, saying that he only garnered about 1% of the votes cast in the August 8th election.
Well, I can assure you that people are tired of the two main political parties in Kenya, and they want to give, fresh blood to leadership. So I can say that before 8th of August election, he did not have much of a chance. But things have, changed because of the temperatures, because of the grandstanding, because of the stalemate that has been there. Businesses have not been conducted the way they were conducted because of the political stalemate. Now a court comes in to give, fresh blood in this whole election. And I believe that he may not win the election, but at least he will scoop a greater chance of those election plans he scooped in the 8th of August election.
Right, do you share the same optimism?
I don't share that optimism, but in any case, a political statement. Being his lawyer, he should
be confident.
Be confident. But really speaking, Akuru Court is not a factor in the election. And even if he will be, 2 weeks will not be enough for him to sidetrack the logistics involved in contesting a presidential election. This is no tea party. People don't change overnight, just within 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Then they now move from their former candidates to a new candidate who got a court order today. So, I mean, it's a child's play. This is there are serious issues before us. Kenya is, it has always been our hope in the eastern horizon. Remember the Mombasa port.
Indeed.
It's a very, very busy port. And the stock exchange in Kenya is bearish now. So Kenya, the tourism potentials of Kenya, the tourism industry will be shattered. So Kenya is going to have a very serious problem, and it's going to affect many countries within the eastern side of Africa.
And this is not a good one indeed for the East African region.
And I think this is the best time for African Union to intervene.
Right.
You can see in all this scenario, nobody's hearing anything about the African Union. So they are waiting for them to start a fight before they are coming. I have expected delegations to be moving between the two candidates. They shouldn't have allowed this to happen. They should have built up confidence. And with that confidence, then a good election.
But confidence can only come if the electoral reform is done according to Odinga's demands.
Because they could have given him soft landing. We have passed through this road before. Raila Odinga was given the second position, Prime Minister. So they could have done something, because allowing for winner takes all, definitely the Kenya will be in permanent crisis.
All right, Elias, let me quickly return to you now. How would you classify the strategy adopted by Raila Odinga? As some believe, we seem to have lost a connection with him there. Okay, let me, put that to you now. It is believed that Raila Odinga's strategy is a calculated attempt for him to exit politics. Do you think, perchance, this could have been the reason why, he threw in the towel, so to speak?
No. He really wanted changes. But the reality on the ground is that those changes cannot be made overnight. That's one. Two, Kenyatta Uhuru is bent on continuing with his leadership of Kenya. In fact, by the time he started calling Supreme Court justices talks, I knew the game was up. I knew Raila Odinga didn't have any chance. So I did not need the instinct of Nostradamus to know that a sitting president are calling sitting Supreme Court justice talks, threatening them, blackmailing them, an independent arm of government. Then who is that will announce an election result? and announce another person as a winner.
So from all you're saying now, the election might be biased.
Might be. It had been programmed for only Kenyatta to win that election.
So if this is the case, so the question of democracy in African politics is not really given an opportunity to thrive.
No, the truth is that we are engaging in mockery of democracy. This is a continent that we believe in this winner takes all. The principle of Louis XIV, letter c'est moi, I am the state. What you call within our local parlance, KBS mentality. That is what we have in Africa. And that's why Kenya is the first country where the Supreme Court will deny a sitting president his victory at the election. That never happened. So we are learning it. We have countries that are practicing it well, but they are very few, like Ghana. You can see almost every 8 years, they change from one party to the other. So they are getting used to it. But many other countries, democracy is still a mockery. So I don't know when the Renaissance will come.
So how can we get this right?
It will take education, number one. As long as majority of our people are ignorant, so we'll continue to move in circumlocution.
Circumlocution.
Circumlocution, moving in circles.
Okay.
We'll be moving in circles.
All right.
So I'm painting a negative picture, but that's the reality. Recall what happened in Gabon election, Congo election, Burundi election, so Rwanda election. So it is all, applying the big stick, either subtly or otherwise. So basically, Africa, it will take time.
All right, let's look at lessons we can learn from all that's happening in Kenya. What can we take away from this?
What we can take away from it is that we should run political systems that will avoid winner takes all. Because when you want to go for election and you spend billions of currency, in whatever currency, you have supporters, you have built hopes, then just overnight they get shattered. And you wait for another 4, 5, 6 years before you rekindle it. You know how much it takes to contest against an incumbent? It takes a lot of money. And you might have borrowed substantial part. People have put in a lot. So there should be a situation whereby the winner will take maybe 60% and the loser will take 40%. Or we apply proportional representation. But this type of election that, the winner appoints everybody, the loser should go and lick his wounds, all the money has spent, everything, that's the reality on the ground. We might not be saying, many people will not be saying this openly. Raila Odinga is not saying it openly, but those that crowded him might have sold the last thing they had in life, thinking that he will win. Now he has lost, they are thinking of the implication. And they will give it their all.
Yeah.
And that's why it is necessary to review the kind of democratic
political system, so to
political system, democratic system we apply. Let us model it to assuage good. Thank you for
all right,
let's
leave it at that for now. Chukwuemeka is a lawyer and a political analyst here in Nigeria.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
It's always my pleasure.
Indeed, same here. Thank you very much. Well, in a continent where a democratic process can go from being a test to becoming the result of a test in form of another test, Kenya looks stuck in the ongoing political drama and will now have to belt up for the next phase of journey. Amidst the uncertainty, Kenya's electoral situation could turn out to mean well for the nation's democracy, as long as political actors and institutions act within the confines of the law. And that is our package for today. But don't forget to join the conversation as usual on Twitter at TVC News NG. And follow me for updates around Africa at Esther TVC News. Until the next one, I am Esther Mokwariola, and always remember, change starts with you.